Hello and welcome to a new video. Today we are doing a TBR video that I'm very excited about, that I've literally been planning since I think February. So one of my missions this year, one of my reading goals, was to read outside my comfort zone and was to read more varied books, more varied genres, just a more diverse selection of things. And so this month's TBR is going to help me with that, and I've been looking forward to it for so long. This month I am only going to be reading LGBTQ books. So all the books on my TBR, all the books I pick up outside of my TBR, they have to have an LGBTQ main character. That is my only condition for the books that I'm going to read this month. I've been wanting to do this for so long because I have so many LGBTQ books that I absolutely adore, and yet I also don't have enough. So I wanted to use this challenge to not only read some new books and give you guys some book recommendations for LGBTQ books. Obviously I'm doing it this month because it is Pride Month, and so it's also the perfect opportunity for me to read these kind of books. But I think that just LGBTQ books often don't get as hyped up as heterosexual romance books or people with heterosexual main characters, and so I think it's really important to highlight these kind of stories because they are often marginalized in popular culture. And so I wanted to discover some more myself, but also help you guys discover some queer book recs. So I realized that on my actual physical TBR I only have 2 books that are LGBTQ, but that's okay. I went on TikTok and I looked at a bunch of recommendations of other books that people were suggesting, and I have my Fable want to read list has, I think I put a little over 20 books on here. It's gonna be slightly different than a usual TBR books. Obviously we choose one from the 26 for 2026 because I do have some queer books on there. Well, the 2 queer books that are on here, we're probably gonna read them. And then aside from that, we're gonna use Fable to pick out my book recs like we did in my January TBR video when I had Fable pick out my books. On the want to read list you have this little bird here, and if you tap on it he'll just randomly choose a book from your want to read list. So obviously on my want to read list I do also have just all the books I want to read, not just the queer ones, but we're just gonna, if it gives me a non-queer book recommendation, we're just not going to take it into account, and we're just going to keep doing it till it only gives me LGBTQ books. So there we go, that is the plan for today. I actually cannot wait. I just really want to get into seeing what books I'm going to read this month. So without any further ado, grab yourself a nice warm or cold drink and let's get right into the video. So like I said, I added about 20 book recs on here. I went on BookTok. I just found a bunch of book suggestions that seem interesting to me. These come from, I think, all genres, but they are mostly either fantasy or romance because that is the main genre I read, and also that's just the main genre that was recommended to me, I guess, because TikTok knows what I like and knows what kind of books I read. But so first we're going to choose our 26 or 2026 books. So I actually have 2 queer book recs here. I have The Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri, and then I have Dark Rise by C.S. Pascat. There's not necessarily one I want to read more, so I think what we're going to just do is this one's going to be book 1 and this one's going to be book 2. We're going to random number generate it, whether I get book 1 or book 2. Okay, 1 to 2, 2. So the first book that we're going to be adding to our TBR is The Dark Rise by C.S. Pascat. So let's read the blurb. I've had my eye on this book for a while actually, and I kind of just added it to my 2026 because when I was making that list I happened to be seeing quite a bit about it, but aside from that I don't really know what it's about. So I'm going to pull up the blurb and we're going to discover together what it's about. Okay, so this is book 1 of 2, so I think it's a duology, which is good because there's not too many books. 16-year-old dock boy Will is on the run, pursued by the men who killed his mother. Then an old servant tells him of his destiny to fight beside the stewards who have sworn to protect humanity if the Dark King ever return. Will is thrust into a world of magic where he starts training for a vital role in the oncoming battle against the Dark. As London is threatened and old enmities are awakened, Will must stand with the last heroes of the light to prevent the fate that destroyed their world from returning to destroy his own. In a world of forgotten magic and reborn heroes, the line between light and dark is not what it seems. So that does seem interesting. It seems like your typical Chosen One fantasy, but I'm okay with that. I love fantasy. I love your typical Chosen One fantasy. But the first book on our TBR is The Dark Rise by C.S. Pascat. Okay, so like I said, the books on my TBR, the LGBTQ books on my TBR, we're obviously going to be prioritizing them. So the first book on my TBR that is LGBTQ, oh, it's going to be falling over, is Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soul by V.E. Schwab. I have been wanting to read this for so long. I bought it back in January I think, but even before that I've been wanting to read this, and this was described to me you know, sometimes they have little cards that tell you what the people thought of it. This one was literally just hot lesbian vampires. And that sounds intriguing to me. So the second book we're adding to our TBR is Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. Let's read the blurb and see what it's about. 3 young women, their bodies planted in the same soil, their stories tangling like roots. This is a story about hunger. 1532, Santo Domingo de la Calzada. A young girl grows up wild and wily, and Maria knows she can only ever be a pawn in men's games. So when an alluring stranger offers an alternate path, Maria makes a desperate choice. This is a story about love. 1827, London. A young woman lives a cloistered life on her family's estate until a moment of forbidden intimacy sees her shipped off to London. Once there, a beautiful widow offers her freedom, but at what cost? This is a story about rage. 2019, Boston. College was supposed to be a fresh start. That's why Alice moved halfway across the world. Then, an out-of-character one-night stand leaves her questioning everything. Alice throws herself into the hunt for answers and revenge. This is a story about life, how it ends and how it starts again. So this seems very interesting. V. Schwab has such a magical way of writing that I just know this is going to be so good, and I absolutely cannot wait to read it. The next one that I have in physical, Jesus, is one that obviously I've been talking about reading for ages, and that is Heartstopper. These are graphic novels, not real books, so I'm not just including the first book, I'm including books 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then book 6, I'm pretty sure actually comes out in July. So we'll read it in July, but we want to read these, plus I have the novella This Winter, and then the other novella, Nick and Charlie. These are all included when I say Heartstopper, but because these are graphic novels and because the rest of them are novellas, it almost counts as like one big book. So obviously I have read book 1 and 2 of Heartstopper before, but I've never gone further. I've seen the entire series like twice, 3 times for season 1. I love it so much. It is honestly my comfort show. However, I've never completed the books, and that is an actual crime. I wanted Pride Month to finally be the month that I get around to reading these books. I just know that I'm going to absolutely love these because I already love the show, and these characters hold such a special place in my heart. Probably some of my favorite characters ever in anything I've ever read or watched, and I can't wait to properly read the book and get invested in the universe outside of the TV show. Okay, so let me read the blurb to you guys so you know what it's about. Nick and Charlie are at the same school, but they've never met until one day when they're made to sit together. They quickly become friends, and soon Charlie is falling hard for Nick, even though he doesn't think he has a chance. But love works in surprising ways, and Nick is more interested in Charlie than either of them realized. This is such an amazing book series. It deals with not only coming of age, finding love, queer identity, but it also deals with mental health, especially in Charlie's case. These are just absolutely amazing books, and I cannot wait to finally be able to say that I've actually read them instead of just saying I love Heartstopper but I've only seen the TV show. So there we go. June 2026 will finally be the year that we read Heartstopper, like 3.5 years after we watched the TV show, but it's fine. It's fine. We're finally reading them, and that's all that matters. Okay, so let's pull up Fable. Well, let's ask Scout, the little bird is called Scout, what book I should read. So each time I'm going to get it to pick 2 books for me, and then I'm going to choose between those 2 books which one interests me more. Okay, so the first book recommended was The Last True Poets of the Sea. That is one of the LGBTQ books that I recently added. Probably because I added so many yesterday, I don't actually remember which one is which. So when I'm reading the blurb, I'm also going to be like rediscovering what this book is actually about. Okay, and then let's see what else it recommends. Okay, so the other book it recommended to me was Some Girls Do, another one of the queer book status. Right, so let's see what these books are about. Let's read the blurb of both books, and then I'll decide which one I want to read. So first we had, what was it? The Last True Poets of the Sea. The Larkin family isn't just lucky, they persevere. At least that's what Violet and her younger brother Sam were always told. When the Lyric sank off the coast of Maine, their great-great-grandmother didn't drown like the rest of the passengers. Fidelia swam to shore, fell in love, and founded Lyric, Maine, the town Violet and Sam returned to every summer. But wrecks seem to run in the family. Tall, funny, musical Violet can't stop partying with the wrong people, and one beautiful summer day, brilliant, sensitive Sam attempts to take his own life. Shipped back to Lyric while Sam is in treatment, Violet is haunted by her family's missing piece, the lost shipwreck she and Sam dreamed of discovering when they were children. Desperate to make amends, Violet embarks on a wildly ambitious mission: locate the Lyric, lain hidden in a watery grave for over a century. She finds a fellow wreck hunter in Liv Stone, an amateur local historian whose sparkling intelligence and guarded grey eyes make Violet ache in an exhilarating new way. Whether or not they find the Lyric, the journey Violet takes, and the bridges she builds along the way, maybe the start of something like survival. So that does seem really interesting. I'm not so sure what genre that would be, but it doesn't really feel like a romance. It feels more like a literary fiction, but it definitely seems interesting. I just really love any book that has the ocean as a prominent theme. I think the ocean is just absolutely amazing and I love reading about it and watching stuff about it. Right, the other one was Some Girls Do by Jennifer Dugan. So let's read the blurb of that. Morgan, an elite track athlete, is forced to transfer high schools late in her senior year after it turns out being queer is against her private Catholic school's code of conduct. There, she meets Ruby, who has two hobbies: tinkering with her baby blue 1970 Ford Torino and competing in local beauty pageants, the latter to live out the dreams of her overbearing mother. The two are drawn to each other and can't deny their growing feelings. But while Morgan, out and proud and determined to have a fresh start, doesn't want to have to keep their budding relationship a secret, Ruby isn't ready to come out yet. With each girl on a different path towards living her truth, can they go the distance together? So this does sound interesting as well. This sounds like it'll be a really nice little queer romance book, and that is really sweet. I do like reading a nice queer romance book. I think they're always just so wholesome. At least the ones I read have been. I'm sure there are very toxic queer romances out there, but the ones I read are just so wholesome and I just love them so much. However, like I said at the beginning of this video, another goal of this challenge, if you will, of this month's TBR is to read outside of my comfort zone, and Some Girls Do is a romance, which is a genre that I read quite a lot, whereas The Last True Poets of the Sea is, from what I can tell, just a literary fiction. So I think we are going to choose The Last True Poets of the Sea as the book that we are going to be adding to our TBR. Okay, so that is 4 books already on the TBR, so we have got 3 more that we need to pick out with Fable. Okay. Keeps giving me heterosexual books. I don't want that. Okay, so the first one it has given me is Compass Rose by Anna Burke. I can't remember that one, but let's see what it gives me next. And then the next one it's given me is Malice by Heather Walter. So these are both interesting picks. Malice, I'm pretty sure, is like an enemies to lovers. It's a Beauty and the Beast retelling, I believe. And then Compass Rose is again ocean themed. I don't think they're pirates, but I do think they're like something to do with the water. But let's read the blurb for each of them and then let's see which one I prefer. So we're reading Compass Rose first. Rose was born facing due north with an inherent perception of cardinal points flowing through her veins. Her uncanny sense of direction earns her a coveted place among the archipelago fleet elite, but it also attracts the attention of Admiral Cometer, who sends her on a secret mission deep into pirate territory. I do love pirates. Accompanied by a ragtag crew of mercenaries and under the command of Miranda, a captain as alluring as she is bloodthirsty, Rose discovers the hard way that even the best sense of direction won't be enough to keep her alive if she can't learn to navigate something far more turbulent than the dangerous seas. Aboard the mercenary ship Man o' War, Rose quickly learns that trusting the wrong person can get you killed, and Miranda's crew have no intention of making things easy for her, especially the captain's trusted first mate Orca, who is as stubborn as she is brutal. So that sounds really fun. You know I love me a pirate themed anything, romance, fantasy, fiction, just give me pirates, I'm happy. So this sounds really good, and the other one is gonna have a hard time living up to that. Okay, so the other one was Malice by Heather Walter. Once upon a time, there was a wicked fairy who, in an act of vengeance, cursed a line of princesses to die. A curse that could be broken by true love's kiss. You've heard this before, haven't you? The handsome prince, the happily ever after. Utter nonsense. Let me tell you, no one in Briar actually cares about what happens to its princesses. Not the way they care about their jewels and elaborate parties and charm-granting elixirs. I thought I didn't care either. Until I met her. Princess Aurora, the last heir to Briar's throne. Kind, gracious, the future queen her realm needs. One who isn't bothered that I am Alice, the dark grace abhorred and feared for the mysterious dark magic that runs in my veins. Aurora says I should be proud of my gifts, that she cares for me, even though a power like mine was responsible for her curse. But with less than a year until that curse will kill her, any future I might see with Aurora is swiftly disintegrating, and she can't stand to kiss yet another insipid prince. I want to help her. If my power began her curse, perhaps it's what can help lift it. Perhaps together we could forge a new world. Nonsense again, because we all know how this story ends, don't we? Aurora is the beautiful princess, and I am the villain. That does sound also really interesting. I like a book where you have the main character is like morally grey or who's like a villain, and it kind of turns the expectations on its head. And I also, you guys know I love a retelling. I absolutely love a retelling. So that is that's a tough decision. I think we're gonna go with Compass Rose, so the first one, because I do love pirates and I haven't read a pirate book since February. I think it's been too much time, and I read a retelling only last month. So I think just because of that, we're going to choose Compass Rose by Anna Burke. Sounds so good and I cannot wait to read it. Also, this does also seem like the love interest is maybe a bit morally grey, so that's going to be fun. The fifth book that we are adding to the TBR is Compass Rose by Anna Burke. This is shaping up to be a really good TBR. I'm very happy with how it's turning out. But anywho, we still have 2 books left to choose. So let's have Scout pick out another. Okay, so the first one it shows me is Next Time It Will Be Our Turn by Jessie Q Sutanto. And then next... Okay, and then the next one we have The Mermaid, the Witch and the Sea, which is a pirate-ish themed book. So maybe, who knows, maybe this month will be the month of pirate books. So let's read the blurb of both these books and then let's decide. Next time will be our turn. Let's read the blurb. Izzy Chen is dreading her family's annual Chinese New Year celebration, where they all come together at a Michelin-starred restaurant to flaunt their status and successes in hopes to one-up each other. So when her 73-year-old glamorous and formidable grandmother walks in with a stunning woman on her arm and kisses her in front of everyone, it shakes Izzy to her core. She'd always considered herself the black sheep of the family for harbouring similar feelings to the ones her Nai just displayed. Seeing herself in her teenage granddaughter's struggles with identity and acceptance, Magnolia Chen tells Izzy her own story of how as a teen she was sent by her Indo-Chinese parents from Jakarta to Los Angeles for her education and fell in love with someone completely forbidden to her by both culture and gender norms, Ellery, an American college student who became Magnolia's best friend and the love of her life. Stretching across decades and continents, Magnolia's star-crossed love story reveals how life can take unexpected turns but ultimately leads you to exactly who you're meant to be. That sounds so good. It's kind of giving me Evelyn Hugo vibes, and Evelyn Hugo is one of my all-time favourite books. The next book is going to have a hard time topping that because that sounds so good. Okay, so the next book was The Mermaid, the Witch and the Sea by Maggie Tokuda Hall. Aboard the pirate ship Dove, Flora the girl takes on the identity of Florian the man to earn the respect and protection of the crew. For Flora, former starving urchin, the brutal life of a pirate is about survival. Don't trust, don't stick out, and don't feel. But on this voyage, as the pirates prepare to sell their unsuspecting passengers into slavery, Flora is drawn to the Lady Evelyn Hasegawa, who is en route to a dreaded arranged marriage with her own casket in tow. Flora doesn't expect to be taken under Evelyn's wing, and Evelyn doesn't expect to find such a deep bond with the pirate Florian. Soon, the unlikely pair set in motion a wild escape that will free a captured mermaid and involve the mysterious pirate supreme, an opportunistic witch, and the all-encompassing sea itself. See, that also sounds really good. Just off the principle that I already have a pirate book on my TBR, I will be picking up the other one. Next Time Will Be Our Turn. I think I'll be reading that. Also, Next Time It Will Be Our Turn. That sounds so interesting. And if it's going to be anything like Evelyn Hugo, I just know I'm going to absolutely love it. So there we go. Book number 6 on our TBR is Next Time Will Be Our Turn by Jessie Q Sutanto. Okay. So we have one more book left that we have to pick, so let's ask Scout one last time to give us 2 book suggestions and we'll see which one we like the best. Okay, oh my god, I'm actually so happy about the suggestion. So the first one it suggested me is Cemetery Boys. I've heard of this book before. Apparently it's a very big book in like the queer book community. I've heard of it multiple different times and I've wanted to read it for a while now. It was the only one of these I'd heard of before and I'd wanted to read before. I just kind of forgot about it because sometimes out of sight, out of mind. I really want to read it. It sounds really interesting. But obviously we have to take a second pick, and the second pick would have to be really good to compete with Cemetery Boys. It chose like the one other book on my TBR that I want to read as much as Cemetery Boys. This is a tough decision. So the second book it chose was Felix Ever After by Kaysen Calendar, which is one that I really want to read as well because it sounds really interesting. Anywho, let me read the blurb for both of these books and then we'll make a decision. Although it's gonna be a tough decision, like not gonna lie. Okay. Oh, I just got... Sorry. Basically the reason that I wanted to read Felix Ever After is because most of these books are gay or lesbian books, and Felix Ever After has a trans main character, and so I also want to read diversely within LGBTQ books. I don't want to just be reading lesbian books or just be reading gay books. I want to read from all representation. That is what made it a contender against The Cemetery Boys. However, I just found out, like just reading the blurb of this, that the main character in The Cemetery Boys is also trans. So whatever book I pick, I can't lose. And that's like, there we go. That's made me both happy, but it's also made the decision harder. So let's read the blurb. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's see what these books are about, and then we'll make a decision. Yadriel has summoned a ghost, and now he can't get rid of him. When his traditional Latinx family has problems accepting his true gender, Yadriel becomes determined to prove himself a real Brujo. With the help of his cousin and his best friend Maritza, he performs the ritual himself and then sets out to find the ghost of his murdered cousin and set it free. However, the ghost he summons is actually Julian Diaz, the school's resident bad boy, and Julian is not about to go quietly into death. He's determined to find out what happens and tie off some loose ends before he leaves. Left with no choice, Yadriel agrees to help Julian so that they can both get what they want. But the longer Yadriel spends with Julian, the less he wants him to leave. Now that sounds really, really good. Yeah, it's a YA fantasy, I guess. So that does sound really interesting because a lot of these books on my TBR are not fantasy, and obviously fantasy is my main genre. So, right, let's read Felix Ever After's blurb, and then we'll pick what's the final book on our TBR going to be. Felix Love has never been in love, and yes, he's painfully aware of the irony. He desperately wants to know what it's like and why it seems so easy for everyone but him to find someone. What's worse is that even though he is proud of his identity, Felix also secretly fears that he's one marginalization too many, black, queer and transgender, to ever get his own ever after. When an anonymous student begins sending him transphobic messages after publicly posting Felix's dead name alongside images of him before he transitioned, Felix comes up with a plan for revenge. What he didn't count on, his catfish scenario landing him in a Kazi love triangle. But as he navigates his complicated feelings, Felix begins a journey of questioning and self-discovery that helps redefine his most important relationship, how he feels about himself. See, that sounds really good, and I feel like that would be such an important story to read and a good story to read. However, I wanted to read Cemetery Boys for so long. I think we're gonna go with Cemetery Boys. I would love to read Felix Ever After, so we'll kind of have it as like a B TBR, so like books that I will pick up if I need a book outside my TBR. We'll definitely have Felix Ever After be like the top contender for that, but I have been wanting to read Cemetery Boys for so long, so that is definitely going to be going on my TBR for the month of June. So there we go. So let's do a quick recap, run through them. We only have 2 physical books. The rest of them will either be bought or will be Kindle books. But first off, we have Dark Rise by C.S. Pacat, which was the book of my 26 at 2026 that I'm going to be reading this month. Then we have the 2 physical books. So we have Heartstopper, which also includes like all the other books in the Heartstopper series, not just the first one. And we also have Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soul by Vishal, which is a standalone and which I cannot wait to read. Then we have The Last True Poets of the Sea, which is, I would say, a queer literary fiction. Then we have Compass Rose, which is a pirate-themed lesbian romance that I absolutely cannot wait to read. Then we have Cemetery Boys, which I actually cannot wait to read. And then the final book we have on the TBR is Next Time Will Be Our Turn, which I cannot wait to read, and which is kind of giving Evelyn Hugo vibes. So there we have it. Only 2 physical books, but 7 books in total. I absolutely cannot wait to get reading this month. I can't wait to read more diverse books and storylines, and means that I'm reading books that I wouldn't normally read and that a lot of people probably haven't really heard about. And I think they're also really important stories to read. But yeah, I absolutely cannot wait to get reading this month. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if you read any of the books that I picked out, or any of the books that I mentioned and didn't pick out, and whether I should read them. I just want to read as many of these books as possible because they all sound so interesting. So we go. Don't hesitate to hit that like and follow button if you like this video, and without any further ado, this is the end of the video. So have an absolutely wonderful week. I will see you next Monday for my reading wrap up. Until then, bye.